You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the May 8th, 2023 meeting of the Long Beach Town Council. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Okay, welcome everybody to the Town of Long Beach Town Council meeting of May 8th, 2023. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So as far as opening remarks, I'm going to add two agenda items. One is Code of Conduct. The other is Workstation for Honor Adams. Make a motion to approve the minutes of the Town Council meeting of April 10th. Is there a second?
I second that.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Committee reports. Police Department / Commission Chief.
Good evening. For the month of April, the Long Beach Police Department responded to 271 calls for service when compared to 168 calls for service in the previous year, for an increase of 103 calls for service. During the month of April, 21 incident reports were documented. A total of 16 individuals were arrested. 6 felony arrests. 3 of those felony arrests were for traffic violations, and 3 individuals were arrested on outstanding warrants. 5 individuals were arrested for operating a motor vehicle while intoxicated. 10 misdemeanor arrests for traffic-related offenses, and I would attribute the overall increase mainly to the traffic enforcement that our officers were conducting over the month of April. They were extremely busy, stopping many more vehicles than in the previous year, hence why we had quite a few arrests related to never received a driver's license, driving while suspended, and actually had a habitual traffic violator, which is a level 5 felony where an individual is no longer by law to operate a motor vehicle. Overall, it was a very steady month for us. There was no police commission meeting. And on the town side, I'd like to remind everybody that golf cart registration has begun. The new golf cart registration stickers are now a 2-year sticker, so that is $100 that covers this year and 2024. And you can get your registration stickers here at the town hall Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and on Saturday from 8 to 4 as well. The water department asked that I share with everyone that during the month of May, we will be conducting our annual fire hydrant flushing. Therefore, you will see some discoloration, possibly with your water. So if you do experience that, please just allow your water to run for a period of time and it will clear out. And then aside from that, I would like to thank the Public Works team for all their work last month on getting down the new mulch at the playground over at the community center. They did an exceptional job there, and in fact, their work saved the town over $3,000 because the vendor that wanted to come in and do the work would have charged us an additional $3,000, and our team was able to take on the project and save the town $3,000. So a big thank you to them. So.
Wait a minute. Hold on. You have to come on. No,
Not during this. Yeah. It's on our website, and we just need proof of insurance, registration, driver's license, and that is it, Bob. You're welcome. And then
what do you ask for? Because they won't know in the audience.
the question was what is needed for golf cart registration. So, and just as a reminder for the community, you need the proof of insurance, your driver's license, and then a $100 check or cash to register. And aside from that, that is all that I have. Thank you.
Okay, Town Administrator report, Chief.
I covered it.
You did cover it, okay. Volunteer Fire Department, Tom Yemk. Oh, no, Kurt Ernst.
Sorry to disappoint you, Dr. LeBay.
That's okay.
There you go. I generally don't need help with this. My voice usually carries, but I'm happy to help. Tom asked me to cover today, mainly because obviously for obvious reasons, I'm not exactly participating in active firefighting. Plus also today our firefighters are at the Michigan City Burn Tower doing an extensive search and rescue training operation. We try to take advantage of that as much as possible. It's made available through the Michigan City Fire Department throughout the county. So when we get opportunities like this to go out there and do some hands-on fire training, we try to take that opportunity. Just to get some basic statistics, Long Beach Fire Department has responded to 51 times this year, both fire and first responder calls year to date versus 33 times a year ago, approximately a 55% increase. We have 14 fire calls this year versus 13 the year before, 37 medical calls versus 20 a year ago. We have an average of 8 firefighters on a call, and again, I know that's an average. A lot of times, if we have calls, we already have enough sufficient manpower, we don't necessarily need extra, or if it's something large like the fire that was at 1302 Lakeshore Drive, generally more people come because we try to call people off if need be, so we don't have too many people on the scene if it's not necessary. We have an average of 5 medical first responders in each call. Obviously that increases or decreases depending on the call. The county now has a new system where they kind of give a priority to us, letting us know the urgency of the call, though we still try to take everything as a priority 1 as they call it, because frankly we think any time you call 911 it's an emergency. However, we try to use that as a way to decide how many people need to show up. And I want to kind of touch on that a little bit too, is that sometimes when I'm bored or what have you, I'm driving around, I'll listen to other departments when they're paged out to medical calls, and then I compare that with what we have here with the town of Long Beach. We get someone there within about 4 minutes and 32 seconds average from the time the call comes out as a volunteer department. I'll listen sometimes to some of these other departments through no fault of their own, and no one responds. And they'll get a second call from the county, and no one responds. They'll get a third call from the county, no one responds. And sometimes they'll call a neighboring department, can you respond to that department? No one comes. These are medical calls. And again, it's no fault of these departments. It's just a manpower issue that's nationwide. We are very fortunate in this community that we have several members of the community that are available pretty much around the clock. They're retired. 2 of them are retired full-time firefighters from the Chicago area. We also have our Deputy Chief, John Wall, that's available quite a bit of time to be able to respond to these calls, and at least 2 or 3 other people that work from home or are otherwise available. We have some very incredibly highly trained people that can get there in very few minutes of time to render aid, when some of our neighboring districts are lucky to get 1 person. So I think that's something we need to take into account, that these people give us a lot of help, and they're very highly trained people that I kind of brag about them to the County Chiefs Association. They ask, where'd you get those people? I say, we just got lucky, and we're not giving them up. Okay. Fire response time was an average of 4 minutes and 51 seconds. Again, medical response time, 4 minutes, 32 seconds. I also want to give a big shout out to our department for our most recent structure fire at 1302 Lakeshore Drive. Call came in around midnight. We were able to hit it relatively aggressively. We had a combined over 25 firefighters on the scene. Most of our members were on the scene for over 15 hours. That's a long time, folks. And that's just not the fire suppression, but rekindling and also assisting with the investigation with the State Fire Marshal's Office and other entities. That's a long time to be in that gear and to be in and out of the gear and the wet and everything else. Obviously, I didn't stick around as longly as some of the other people. I sustained a fractured leg and a fractured bone as a result of the fire through no fault of anyone. It was just, unfortunately, it was bad visibility. And sometimes you're not sure where you're stepping, and I did, and I went down. Thankfully, I had my other firefighters who were able to assist me to get back up. I wasn't happy, and I will actually be undergoing surgery on Thursday to repair some of the damage that was done. So I'll be out of commission for about another month or so. And suffice to say, the next time John Wall tells me to take a lap around the house, I may remind him that I outrank him, and I'll probably stay where I'm at. But again, I'm glad to serve this place for 25 years, and it's kind of a hindrance, but again, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'm 3rd generation. My father and my grandfather were volunteer firefighters, and I'm proud to serve this community as your chief and as a firefighter. Also getting back to the fire at 1302 Lakeshore Drive, it is being investigated by the State Fire Marshal's Office. Also, I just let you know, Assistant Chief Tom Yemps also suffered a minor injury in that fire as well. So it's probably the most injuries we've had at one fire scene. But the town's been very good with its insurance, and they've been very responsive to our needs. And I thank Chief Swistek for all of his help in coordinating those efforts as well. Because it's being investigated, we've been I know there's been some requests for information. We're wanting to make sure that we get all the proper information from all the entities for something like this before we submit a full report. So it may take a little bit more time than it normally would, but when you're dealing with the State Fire Marshal's office and insurance companies, injury issues, it takes a little bit more time. We want to make sure we do it right before we disseminate any information to anyone. So we appreciate the town's patience in that matter. We've also done some training recently with electronic vehicles and solar panels. That's becoming a more prevalent issue in our community. Obviously, a lot of people drive these electric golf carts, they drive electric bicycles, obviously electric vehicles. Solar panels are now becoming an issue. It's a very difficult thing for the fire service, but we've been doing some upgraded training on that. We're also looking to purchase what's called a fire blanket we can use at certain electrical fire calls that actually cost about $3,000 to $4,000. But it's something that we need to kind of be able to smother the fire, because water will not put out a lot of these fires. You can squirt water until hell freezes over, and literally you're making no progress. But we're at least trying to train on to best serve this community and hopefully deal with those issues as they come. And then I'll certainly be happy to entertain any questions. Otherwise, I would turn over to our Deputy Chief, John Wall, for a report as to the Fire Commission.
Chief, if I could just add for the public's information, next week, May 16th and 17th, the State Fire Marshal, along with about a half a dozen fire investigators, will be back at the scene. We will be having a one-lane closure on Lakeshore Drive to allow them to work at the scene as well. So just for everybody's information, there will be a little bit of an inconvenience next week on those 2 days.
Very good. Thank you, Chief. Anything else? All right. Thank you, folks.
Go ahead.
So we did hold our Fire Commission meeting on May 4th. We had 3 or 4 different items on the agenda. The public safety building was one of the major issues that we discussed. The design progress is at 90%. Building permit's been applied for. Septic permit downstate has been approved, and it's pending at the LaPorte Health Department. LaPorte County Health Department, I'm sorry. Cost impacts were discussed. We had their final sub bids in this past week, so we should know something from the contractor about our final cost impacts, and we'll be reporting to the Fire Commission on that and subsequently to the Town Council about any cost impacts. Financing, the funds were transferred, my understanding, last week to the trustee bank, so we're making great progress there. The funds are available. The town will get reimbursed out of those proceeds for its contribution, as well as the payments to the contractor in the future. The building corporation was formed and it's active. They're doing their job. In fact, they did attend our last design meeting, which was interesting, 2 of the 3. So that was good. They're very active and some great individuals. We appreciate their service. Our fire truck purchase, we had that on the agenda as well. Although that delivery is probably still 12 to 15 months away. We think we want to try to have the council entertain some financing proposals. We've got 1 bank proposal in originally, but we probably should move that ball forward sometime in the next few months. There was a significant discussion about fire department finances. A lot of questions were asked, and we just knocked that around. Tom Yemp, Assistant Chief, or one of our chiefs, I should say, Co-Chief Tom Yemp, presented a lot of information, and the discussion was lively, to say the least, and that's all I have. Next meeting is June 1st.
John, I have a question. Are there written minutes for the Fire Commission?
We're on Zoom every time, Mary Lou, and that's, as far as I know, that suffices. But
Well, I take the minutes for HR. Dr. LeMay takes them for APC. The chief takes them for the police, and I can read much quicker than I can watch it on TV. So most of the committees that I know of, that I serve on, have written minutes, and I would like to see that.
Mary Lou, please don't forget Deanna takes them for these meetings.
Yeah, and Deanna takes them for these, and then Meg Collin takes them for the BZA.
Chris, is it mandatory minutes be taken at these meetings?
Minutes are not required under the open door law, however, memoranda, so it's a little bit of a probably a blip in what the open door law is. Minutes aren't required, but there are memoranda which ultimately shall consist of the minimum of the date of the meeting, who attended, what generally was considered, and how votes went. Technically, does Zoom probably cover it? Yes. Is best practice to have minutes? Yes. So you guys can all take that for what you will.
I've been doing it for a number of years. I did it free for the BZA when I served on that, and it was tedious. So,
Public Works? No, actually, we have a public comment section at the end of the meeting, okay? Mary Lou, Public Works.
Public Works did not meet, and we will meet this month, the fourth Monday of the month, unless it's a holiday. Let me look. Okay, just a minute. No, so we meet the 22nd.
Park Board, Joy Schmidt.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
We do.
Okay, Park Board met on 4/25. Summer Park program is going to begin on June 16th. Camp runs through August 4th. There will be no camp scheduled on July 3rd or July 4th. Work has been completed at stop 19 and 29. We discussed plans with Stu Branson for a new brick memorial area in the park across the street from Town Hall. We'll be seeking 3 quotes for that project. Tree trimming in the park is complete. We ordered a stake survey at stop 29 for a cost of $2,900. The date is currently 8 to 10 weeks out. The Park Board signed a contract with Global Engineering to design the ADA stop 15 in addition to apply for and manage the Lake Michigan Coastal Grant. And we will have a design meeting in July where anyone will be welcome to come and provide their input. And next meeting is June 27th at 6 p.m.
Great, thanks, Joy.
I'd like to thank Joy and Zach Neff. I was out of the state in April. It was my mother-in-law's 101st birthday, and I had a call from a resident that was upset about what they thought the Park Board did. And Joy always responds to me, whether it's a text or a phone call. And I think that was beach cleanup week. And between her and Zach, took care of the town or the Park Board didn't do anything wrong, but sometimes it's just to go out and look and see what the resident thinks. And I can't thank them enough. Joy responded to me at least twice while we were on the road, and then Zach came back and responded to me, so I thank both of them.
Great. Community Center, Joy.
Community Center at 5-1. The highlights are we're having an open house on July 29th to revert the park. We have no broken windows in the building currently at the beginning of golf season, so we'll see how that goes.
Woohoo!
We're in October, heat pump replacements, and the air conditioning will probably be switched over in mid-May. Next meeting is June 5th at 2 p.m.
Questions? Budget and Finance, Mr. Perry.
Good evening. Budget and Finance met at 8:30 a.m. on April 12th. And in attendance were myself, Mr. Wall, Laurel Kay, Helen, Joe Jogman. I apologize if I missed anyone, but I think that did it. We discussed variance to budget, payroll expenses, year-to-date, year-over-year. Quarterly and mid-year financial reviews were done by Sender. Unfinished business, we looked at cash management and bank accounts. We still need to get a higher return on our assets that we have with Horizon, but there's been recent talk about evaluating different banks. We also need to move our software system into the cloud, and until we do that, it's difficult to make changes with the bank accounts. I would welcome any advice or help with that process, but I believe that's where we're at right now. We talked about the Long Beach Sewer Project, possible litigation fee turning into 500 grand plus. Looked at capital plan, update and revision timetables for the spring. There's a Lakeshore Drive water improvement project on the table. There's, I think the town council approved a $40,000 study for that. Those costs may go up to the $400,000 to $500,000 range, depending on how that works. I'm sorry, that's for stop 17 drainage. We talked about stop 29 Woodruff invoicing. We've been looking for a Woodruff invoice for a long time. There's a bunch of guesstimates as to what that amount might be, which range from not too bad to scary. So for budgetary process, we would love to see that in the near future. Talked about the public safety building. That's a hot topic. I know that'll come up in a little bit. Our next budget and finance meeting is tomorrow morning at 8:30. That's all I have.
Human Resources, Mary Lou.
Human Resources did not meet in this month. We will meet, if we have an agenda, we'll meet in June, first Thursday in June at 1:30.
Tree Board, Ellen Lynch.
I think she's on Zoom.
Somebody tell her she's muted.
Ellen, can you unmute yourself?
Can you unmute yourself, Ellen?
Hi, this is Ellen Lynch. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. We met this last Wednesday, May 3rd. Everyone was in attendance except for James, and we had a very short meeting. We went through some corrections and clarifications that Dr. LeMay brought to my attention, and we've addressed them and put them in the latest version of our tree ordinance. And actually, everything went well, and we also put in the new section 9910 that Chief Whitehead and Tom Dolph wanted to change, so we changed it accordingly. That's all we're doing. I will be sending, I sent a copy of this to a lot of you already, and if I don't hear back on any more corrections that I might need to do, I'll then send a copy of it to all of you. We can move forward in making sure it gets signed. Our next meeting will be June 7th at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's about all.
Thank you.
So Chris, does the tree ordinance have to go to the Advisory Plan Commission?
No.
That can be dealt with here?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Ellen, so I had suggested some changes. Now, the copy that I got didn't have most of those changes on it. Maybe you and I need to get together and talk again just so we get this done. Okay. All right, so let's do that, and I'll talk with you about that. And then once we've made those changes, we'll send it to everybody on the council.
All right.
Okay. And I don't know, maybe what I got sent was not the copy that was meant to be sent.
Did you get it today?
Yes. Yeah, it had like
Today?
4.
Some of the things that you wanted done, I changed the wording out of it because
Okay.
it's more deep diving on how people present native trees and all that. And if you look at some of the exhibits, you might understand what I did when I wrote the ordinance.
Okay, yeah, let's you and I get together. Okay, sounds good. Building Commission. Building Commission met on April the 14th. Just the highlights. We did discuss changing the fine structure. We've had an increase in frequency of people building without permits and without registered contractors. Discussion was to start fines at $500 for those 2 infractions. I think we're going to get copies of that from Chris for the Advisory Plan Commission meeting, and the Advisory Plan Commission will then go over that. 2801 Brentwood was a repair and replace deck and a stairs. That permit was actually denied because part of that permit they wanted to put a roof over a deck that is encroaching into the setback. One of our ordinances says you can't increase volume into the setback. Shoreland Hills wants to put a porta potty at their stop 31. We said no because you have to have a principal residence on the property. If they want to go to the BZA, they can do that. And then at 1922 Lakeshore Drive, the homeowner wanted to install a fence along Lakeshore Drive. However, he wanted to put that fence 6 feet high to match what he has existing. What he has existing is grandfathered. A new fence would not be grandfathered, and so that was also denied. And that was the Building Commission. And Building Commission next meets on 5/12 at 1 p.m. Board of Zoning Appeals, they met on 4/17/23. Under new business, it was decided by the Building Commission to allow Tony Macri to combine lots 35, the wedge of lot 34 and a half of 36 into one buildable lot. I think everybody here has a copy of that site plan, so you can kind of have some idea of what he wants to do. This plan does increase lot coverage of their residential property on lot 35 and remains of 34, which was already non-conforming, though it was 4-1 with me being the one opposing. It should be noted that the Macquaries want to decrease the amount of buildable property on their 3 or 5 lots, I believe, 5 lots. But the one problem I had with it was they do make the one lot that their house is on more non-conforming. The Advisory Plan Commission didn't agree with my position on that. But that has to come now before this council to approve or disapprove, right?
Yes, it's something that's in the works of being changed, I think after a few suggestions over the years, because the subdivision ordinance is really written, and I think it exists from the 70s, to really address real big subdivisions that when a lot of development was going on in this town versus smaller splits and things that, such as the McCrees are proposing to do. So there's only been, and again, I've mentioned this before for the few that have been before you, they've actually approached it the right way. They haven't just gone and tried to split off property. The county has upheld their agreement to not record those things, but for without receiving approval and the appropriate language on such deeds from the town. So it has gone before the APC in terms of their request. It comes to you, as Dr. Lemay says, and it requires your approval in addition to the APC to allow them essentially to end up with 2 buildable lots. They're not exactly under common ownership because there's a corporation, but they own that corporation. So they're just increasing, and there's a slice, as you can see from their plan, to make that other a little more in compliance. Both will be buildable lots that are in compliance. The current home has some non-conformances on it, but it already exists, and the other one will be in full compliance with the current requirements of the code. So it just takes your consideration and requires your approval for them to move forward with that.
So does everybody here understand what they want to do? I'll entertain a motion to approve what they want to do.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Aye. Okay, so congratulations, you get to do what you want to do. Okay, also at the APC, they got a referral from the Building Commission about that issue with the fines. The APC was concerned with zoning violations only, however, so the thought was that it's desirable to make the fines consistent across our building codes. That would be 150, 151, 154, 155, and 150. And actually 2 parts of 155. There was discussion regarding the increased incidence of violations for no registration, no building permit, whether to fine homeowners, contracts, or both was discussed. Ultimately, the Advisory Plan Commission decided that it'd be desirable to fine both the homeowner and the contract $500 for no permit and no registration. There was no objection to 154.999 starting at $500 and going up for subsequent violations. And Chris, our attorney, is going to bring back an ordinance to the next meeting for the APC's consideration. Any questions here about that? Okay. Board of Zoning Appeals had no meeting, and the next meeting is canceled, so the next meeting will be in June.
So no APC meeting?
I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, did I say APC? BZA. BZA, did I say APC?
No, I just,
These acronyms.
I know. So we still have a meeting a week from today?
APC still has a meeting, BZA does not.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, screwed that up. And so that was it.
No, I don't-
I guess I did it in the wrong order, that's part of the problem. Okay, building permit and revenue report.
For April, building permit and revenue report for April 2023, we had 24 permits totaling $735,143 with revenue of $9,070. 5 electric permits issued totaling $606. 3 street cut permits with $300 of revenue. Legal expenses paid in April, $8,625 paid to Brazy, Nelson and Janes. $278 paid to Knight, Hoppy, Kernick, and Knight, and $1,294.50 paid to Barnes and Thornburg. Lobbyist fees totaling $6,250 were paid to the Corden Group. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So, Mr. Perry, did we get a cumulative amount of what we've paid to your legal fee of What were your
Well, it's
legal
not
group?
really my legal fees, it's clerk treasurer's office legal fees. which-
Okay, and what was the cumulative amount?
Thank you. It is $1,657.50 for
Okay.
2023.
Thank you. So I'll entertain a motion to approve those reports.
I second it.
No, I'll entertain a motion, so you can make the
Oh,
motion.
I make the motion to approve.
Does anybody else want to second it?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, unfinished business. Draft of ordinance pertaining to vacant lots. Mary Lou, is that kind of yours?
Well, it is the Public Works, but Chris and Lynn and Greg have been working on it.
So I had a request to look into various matters pertaining to the vacant lots and different charges for fire protection, leaf collection, stormwater, and as part of my review, there are multiple ordinances at play here, but I did determine that stormwater, that ordinance that was previously approved, already applies to improved and unimproved. Leaf by ordinances as well as garbage apply only to improved properties. So if you're inclined to charge or do something different in the future, you need to change that ordinance. And then you have a draft of an ordinance, which is a very simple and subtle change, which is changing to charge fire protection to all properties, not just improved properties, which is I believe, $2.60 a month. No matter what you do with each of these different facets, we need to have a public hearing. That ordinance is before you if you're inclined. I just need to have direction so that I can arrange for publication of notice of a public hearing and you can move forward with those things. So again, just to reiterate, the $15 stormwater fee that already by ordinance should be charged to all properties. The fire protection is not. Right now, it's only to those that are hooked into the system, and leaf pickup is only for improved properties. So those are not part of this ordinance, because again, as I was requested to look from the Public Works Board, most of those are already addressed, and if you're inclined to change anything, then we can prepare an ordinance that deals with each of those sections of the code. But again, there's some lead time there because we have to publish notice, you have to conduct a public hearing to do that.
Now, say that again, leaf only for,
Leaf is for improved properties only by ordinance, and that one is
which I think is
longstanding.
what Tom Dolph wanted. So I would ask, let me have time to talk to Lynn and Greg and Tom, and then get back to you, and then we can get everything cleaned up.
Well, I think we're set to set this part for public hearing, right? This is done,
Absolutely.
right?
If that's what you'd like to do in terms of fire protection, if you'd like to add that, that's done. If you want to move forward with leaf or anything else, those could be changes or additions that you can discuss at this public hearing.
Okay.
So it's up to you, given that you're...
So I would make a motion to set this for public hearing, because this part about fire protection is done.
Okay.
It's prepared.
Yes.
So that motion is made. Is there a second?
I'll second it. John?
So basically what this does is add a charge for unimproved lots for fire protection. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Nobody. Now, as far as leaf protection, my thought is that unimproved lots contribute at least their share of leaves to the town's leaf burden. And I don't know why unimproved lots wouldn't be charged for leaf pickup. So I'd like to suggest that Chris start on work to change what ordinances need to be changed to allow that to happen. That's my feeling. Does anybody want to discuss that further, disagree?
I would agree. I mean, depending on the circumstances for an individual property and how many lots are involved and what those lots, when we say an unimproved lot, I mean, maybe we need to define that a little better too at some point. I'm not exactly sure how that works. If you've got one property for tax purposes and you've got multiple lots, do we say that one property pays, or do we say that...
Well, if it's combined, that's one.
Yeah, that's one.
Yeah, we're not...
So when we say unimproved lot, we're not talking about a house with 3 lots having to pay 2 more lots. We're only talking about somebody that doesn't have a house on a lot. That's what's an unimproved
right.
lot.
Yes.
I would agree with Dr. Lemay. If an unimproved lot is defined as a lot in town that generates leaves, then I think they should be part of the burden on the leaf program as well.
And I'm not familiar, how,
No, actually, this, you'll get a chance during public comment, okay?
so
Absolutely, we can clarify.
how are leave pickup billed? Is that annual or is
No, it's monthly.
it monthly?
Yeah.
So, I guess part of the question is, are we already off and running for this year, and do you start it next year?
I would say
You know,
start
as
next year.
So that it won't necessarily hold up what you're doing here, but given, it's your call, but as you're thinking about moving forward as to when that will be effective, start with a clean year and whatever that, the annual assessment's going to be.
And all this is going to have to go to public hearing, so there will be
Yeah.
plenty of time for discussing of what we're doing and what we're
Right, and
proposing.
I want input from Tom, who's the street department. He's the head of that.
Well, that-
And he was very, I feel that he took a strong position on that, correct, Mark?
If I recall, Tom was in favor of charging all lots, as Dr. Lemay indicated, because every lot obviously is contributing to the overall leaf collection in the town.
Okay.
Okay, so that's not ready to be set for public hearing, but Chris can bring that back to us next month, and we can maybe set that for public hearing then. Correct? Okay, so we have a motion to set this one for public hearing, and the other one Chris is going to bring back about leaf pickup. Okay? Step 29 project, invoice from Woodruff and Sons, has that been received yet?
I think I mentioned it, if I didn't. We've met with Woodruff already, so he's very shortly going to invoice that owner. And as I've discussed with some of you, that, we need to determine what our negotiating position is relative to that. And as there's lawsuits involved in that particular situation, I'll defer to council as far as whether or not we want to discuss the specific strategy at this meeting. But right now, my understanding is that the invoice will be shortly delivered to the homeowners at step 29. As far as our negotiating position, I think.
Yeah, I just want to remind that memorandum of understanding is out there, that there is hanging in the balance some resolution of litigation there, but that's the extent of my involvement. You do have counsel from Bliss McKnight still that represents with regard to the lawsuit that is the subject of that memorandum, but certainly something that needs
It's
to get
Bortman.
resolved.
But we've been waiting for this invoice.
First of all, 3 months. That question was out of order, first of all. Second of all, the answer was incorrect. So I don't think we really, unless you tell me we need to discuss this evening, I'm not sure we really want to be.
It's the information.
First of all, that's your second out of order, really, Bob. You're not in order at the public comment.
Okay.
I'll go further, and we can dig out or provide again, the memorandum of understanding is out there. You guys have executed that before, so it's multiple properties. I can't rattle them all off as we sit here, but
I could rattle them off,
but they're
because I am correct.
certainly
There's more than one individual.
There's 3 of them, John.
Yeah,
There
but
are
I can-
4, actually, but we can, do we want, how much detail do you want to get into this evening?
We don't have the invoice, right? I think that's probably plenty to talk about with this. Horizon Bank interest update?
As I mentioned, we discussed it. We also looked at the possibility of evaluating other banks, and regardless, we need to move our software to the cloud before we make that change. So therefore, we have not made the change.
How long is this going to go on? Because we've been talking about this for probably at least 4 months.
Well, the town's been around for about 100 years, and it would be the first time in 100 years that we've done this, and we're
But-
trying hard to do it. Based on the scrutiny my office is constantly under, we are very hesitant to do anything prematurely, and especially because our town administrator brought up the possibility of switching banks. Now, I'm sure that the town would not appreciate if I was to obligate the town's money to some long-term interest rate program with the understanding that maybe we're going to switch banks. So because of that, we're waiting to make sure we do things properly before we shoot, aim, and fire.
Can you give us a timeline on when this might happen? Actually, you'd be out of order. Can you give us a timeline on when this might happen, Mr. Perry?
Well, depending on if we don't switch banks, or if we evaluate switching banks and realize or come to the conclusion we're not going to switch, and if we're able to move to the cloud in the next couple of weeks, I would say 30 days. If we switch banks and we don't move to the cloud in 30 days, it'll be longer.
I would suggest we not switch banks because we're losing tens of thousands of dollars monthly on interest we could be accruing. Civic upgrades to the cloud, is there an update on that?
Same deal, we're trying to get them together. We're having trouble. Our K Plus needs to communicate with Civic in order to do this. And with Sender. Sender does not know Civic inside and out. K Plus is, well, a little bit, I don't want to say at odds, but it's hard to get all three together. We've talked to Baker Tilly, who actually uses Civic, and they've been helpful, but Baker Tilly, as you'll see from our next bill that'll come up, Baker Tilly is expensive. So I would hope that we can get it settled in the next week, but our challenge has been getting K Plus, Civic, and Sender on the same page to do it.
Tim, as a reminder to everybody here, Civic, the software program, Baker Tilly's the parent company. So I think they would be a big help to us.
Yep.
And I think they're CPAs, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
Okay, St. Lawrence Avenue stormwater drain update. Chief, is that you?
Yes, a little bit of history on St. Lawrence. There is a storm drain underneath the roadway on St. Lawrence that runs from the intersection of Oriole and has an outfall at stop 24 onto the lake. This is a 100-year-old storm drain line back roughly 8 years ago from Lakeshore Drive south. About 80 feet of it was upgraded at that time. The town has known for some time that the line is somewhat clogged, so last meeting, the town council approved an expenditure not to exceed $9,000 to begin the exploration using a camera and the jetting of this particular line. That had commenced about 2 weeks after the last meeting. They were only able to get into that line approximately 70 feet when they then came into many obstructions. Many roots have grown in the structure. This is a 24-inch storm drain, and there is also a lot of organic matter that has clogged that line. So the street superintendent on the day in question made the executive decision to have them halt their work, which saved the town quite a bit of money that day. So therefore, we were billed $6,887.50 for that initial exploration of that line. Since then, we have asked National Power Rotting, which is a organization out of Chicago, Illinois, is only one of a few out there that are capable of clearing this particular size of a line. Also, I would add that we had the Michigan City Sanitary District look at this line at no cost to the town about a year ago. They were able to camera it as well and realize that it is extremely clogged. So National Power Rotting was asked to submit a new proposal to the town, which I sent to all of you about a week ago. The new proposal is for them to come back, begin to commence work on the 340-foot line. This would take them what they estimate to be 3 days. They have given us an initial estimate of $22,800. This would include the jetting of the particular line, the camera of the line, and then also an employee would actually travel down into the 24-inch line and would physically cut out any root structures that could not be removed by the jetting. My recommendation to the council after speaking to National Power Rotting and also with our street superintendent is to approve 4 days of work, which would be a not to exceed contract for $30,400 for the work. And this would again include the cleaning, the closed circuit television inspection of the line, and this is recommended because of the outfall at stop 24 currently is not operating in the fashion that it should.
I would make that motion. Is there a second?
I'd second it.
Discussion.
Yeah, Chief, are we sure that they can clear that line, or what happens if it's collapsed or something and it'll be a major construction project? I've seen this.
Sure, and that's a great question. They'll know more once they get into this, probably for another day, trying to jet it out and get further into the line. The first truck that they brought out wasn't able to do the type of work that they needed, so they're going to be bringing out their biggest equipment that they have to tackle a project of this size. But no, it's a very good question. There may be some compromised sections of that line because it is 100 years old. So.
Is that why the road deteriorated?
No, that's because of the shade of all the trees there. The asphalt isn't able to dry out.
Okay.
So there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Doc, if I could, while we're on the question of St. Lawrence, Reggie, if I could put you on the spot, if you could come up, please. Tom asked me to ask this question of Reggie because we wanted to be very transparent with the community as we begin to work this clogged storm drain. Reggie, if you could introduce yourself and tell them your work with MS4.
I'm the coordinator for MS4 Stormwater. I'm a senior advisor on stormwater quality management. I work for Butler, Fairman, and Seifert. I'm also the former item regulator.
Thank you, Reggie. The question that the street superintendent wanted me to ask for public knowledge this evening was, as we begin to continue the work on this clogged storm line, there's a lot of organic matter in there, and these trucks that will be jetting these lines utilize water that'll be pressurized going in there as they are jetting the lines, and the water goes back through the trucks. It is filtered out. Any debris or other matter is removed in the truck, but the water is then reused, put back into the jetting line. The question is, at the outfall at Stop 24, residents will begin to notice the discolored water and the organic water that'll be coming out of there. Like anytime you have a clogged drain at home, obviously this drain's been clogged for some time in that. Is there anything that we need to do for our MS4 compliance as we continue the work on this particular storm line? This is not a sewer line, a sanitary line, just a storm line.
Well, the first thing is make sure you have a good contractor, which you do out of Chicago. The truck that they use will have a filter in the back, yes. So it filters the water, it goes out. As far as your MS4 program goes, one of the important points of that program is making sure your residents know what's going on. So I would advise that we do some kind of notice to them so that they're aware that between this date and this date, that is what's going on. But I think that's about it.
Very good. And we'll be monitoring the fallout at Stop 24 as well. And again, we just wanted to make sure, as the general public knows, that our work on this will be monitored and is in compliance with the MS4.
There's some of those dry wells that sit there. If there's any dry well that's in close proximity to this, they have baskets now that they're going to put in the dry well. I would recommend those going in.
Okay, very good. I will share that with Tom. And the work, Dr. LeMay, for your knowledge, we have no idea when they will schedule this. We'll contact them tomorrow. We hope to have them out in the next 1 to 4 weeks.
Great.
Thank you, Reggie.
You're welcome.
Okay, new business. Code of Conduct, Mary Lou.
I was talking to Chris Willoughby and Dr. LeMay, and I would like to initiate a code of conduct, and Chris was very receptive to that, and the rest of the council hasn't had a chance to look at it tonight, but I gave him copies. And what it will be is, it's the code of conduct for public meetings. So if I'm a council person, if I'm on a committee, but it hopefully will eliminate any harassment, any bullying, intimidation. And I really was very pleased. I mean, I just gave Chris like a little summary of what I thought it should be according to the Roberts Rule of Orders, and he really expounded on it. So I've given everybody a copy, and I'm hopefully that we would look at it next month, sign it, correct?
I do have one suggestion. You have it in front of you in resolution form. It might be also proper to amend the ethics ordinance that we previously did and add this under the same section as an ordinance. So, you know, it's your pleasure of how you'd like to do it, but an ordinance is obviously stronger than a resolution, be part of the town code and, you know, easily reviewable. So that's one suggestion I might make, but again, with discussion with Mary Lou and at her request, wanted to get something before you so that the concept was before you for consideration. But, you know, whether you do it at next month's or the following, or I'll, you know, whatever your pleasure is, I can change that format.
And maybe we could have it on the website so people could look at it, because I think it's important. Many people don't speak up because they're intimidated, and I just think it's important that we treat everybody, look out for everybody and be respectful of them.
Chris, you're recommending that you're recommending that we then incorporate however we need to do with the ethics ordinance with this?
Yeah, I think if you were inclined to consider this concept, that it's probably better to put them both. So that I would prepare an ordinance that would amend the ethics ordinance to include this.
Good.
So that they reconcile and everything works together. Like I said, this is a resolution. The ethics ordinance, you pass by ordinance by definition.
Yes.
So that's my suggestion if you were inclined to.
I would agree with that.
I would too.
Okay, so that's coming back next month. Next item, initiation of action to seek the removal of the clerk treasurer from office. This is my item. I don't want to rehash all the many problems we've had with the clerk's office since Mr. Perry was appointed by the LaPorte County Republican Committee.
What statutory provisions are you relying on?
Mr. Perry, you do not, you're out of order. This is the meeting of the town council. You are not a member of the town council.
Question, that's my...
No, you're not.
And you can answer to my attorneys as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll talk in court, I hope.
Can't wait.
Anyone wishing to familiarize themselves with all these issues that we've had can review the minutes of Zoom links to our town council meetings of 12/12, 12/22, 1/9, 2/13, among others, on the town website. Since our last council meeting, more of our vendors have notified the clerk's office of their overdue invoices which have not been paid. This is in addition to the many others that have been received since Mr. Perry has taken office. On 5/1, we were notified by Cargill, our town's sole street salt provider, of unpaid notices from 12/31 and 3/9 totaling over $8,300. On 5/2, we received another past due invoice from our office supply vendor. The town credit card has accrued $59 in overdue and overdraft fees. We've been late in paying our federal taxes for a total of $2,200. AT&T was late being paid. The building commissioner was late being paid, and Bloomington Ford was late being paid for our new police vehicle. To my knowledge, this sort of occurrence hasn't taken place in this town prior to Mr. Perry's taking office. If this continues, and I have no reason to think that it won't, vendors will want to be paid in advance for all services and materials provided to the town, and our credit rating will not improve. In fact, it will worsen. Also, town funds have yet to be moved from non-interest-bearing accounts to interest-bearing accounts, as we've discussed earlier tonight. This was promised months ago to the council and is costing the town thousands of dollars monthly. Unfortunately, state statute does not allow a clerk treasurer to be dismissed for either incompetence, moral turpitude, or having no interest in performing their jobs. It does, however, allow dismissal for failure to perform their prescribed duties. At the last town council meeting, this town council approved the bonding process for the construction of the public safety building. To complete that process, on last Monday afternoon, I instructed the clerk to wire $93,407.60 to U.S. Bank the following morning. At his request, I explained in detail why this was necessary. On Tuesday morning, in an apparent attempt to thwart the bonding process, he refused to do so, and in fact listed 5 demands that he would require to be fulfilled before he would do so. This is all well documented on an email chain which everyone sitting at this table has had access to. According to Indiana Code 36-5-6-6B, the clerk shall do the following. 1. Receive and care for all town money and pay the money out only on the order of the town legislative body. By Indiana statute, the clerk is not the decision maker. Decisions are the job of the legislative body, that is, the town council. His duty is to follow the directives of the town council. Therefore, I move to initiate action to seek the removal of the clerk treasurer from office through the LaPorte County Superior Court. This is more than just a vote of no confidence, which this council has already passed unanimously at a previous town council meeting. Mr. Perry's continued presence in the role of clerk treasurer presents a clear present and future danger to the town of Long Beach. Therefore, I make that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion.
I've been an apologist for the clerk treasurer's office for as long as Tim's been in office. We've had many discussions about, the various ways that the position needs to function, and I'm just at the end of my wits right now. We've had so many opportunities where we could have straightened things out, and it seems like we just keep getting mired down in the same situation over and over again. Some of these things are not as important as others, but last Monday was the last straw as far as I'm concerned. I'm disappointed, I'm sad. We had high hopes, but it just seems like we just keep tripping on our shoelaces, and I just think it's time for this council to make a strong statement relative to the lack of performance.
I would like to recommend that town council comment on the process and what constitutes taking this to court ultimately in terms of the violations.
I shared Mr. Wall's concern. I'm frustrated mainly with the lack of the $2 to $3 million we have laying around in basically non-interest bearing or very low interest bearing accounts when we could be invested in short term, not long term, but short term CDs that are yielding between 4% and 5%. I don't know how much longer the higher rates are going to last, but we ought to take advantage of them while they're there. However, having said all that, I think all the council members have received a copy of the Supreme Court of Indiana case of State versus Neff, and to remove a clerk treasurer, the bar is very, very high, and you can. There's a lot of deficiencies, a lot of issues here, but you still have to prove it in court if it goes that far. And what I fear is we're going to get bogged down in litigation for weeks, months, years. If it would get appealed to the appellate court, then to the Supreme Court, these cases can drag on forever at God knows how much in attorney's fees we're going to be spending. So for that reason, I'm very hesitant to support this motion, even though I appreciate Dr. LeMay and John, what your concerns are. I have those same concerns. But when you get into court, we have to prove all this, and I don't know. It's a high bar to show. If you read the State versus Neff case, that clerk treasurer didn't pay bills for 48 months and did a lot of things that are way more serious than what Mr. Perry's been neglecting. And the Supreme Court said, not enough, can't discharge her. So for that reason, I'm hesitant to support the motion.
John, by statute, the Superior Court has to take this issue up within 10 days of getting the referral.
Okay.
We have an email chain specifically documenting his refusal to do.
I know all that.
I
know all that. They have to do it. You have to have a hearing. But just because the Supreme Court hears it or decides, that doesn't put an end to it. It can be appealed. You can get it. Like they're just
once he's dismissed from office, a new clerk treasurer can be appointed. That solves our problems, to a lot of our problems.
We'll be retired by then, Bob. It takes a long time.
Days is how long they have to consider it, Mary.
I've been on a lot of boards and committees and everything, and the easiest thing in the world to do is to fire somebody. It's simple to do. What's difficult is getting somebody in a replacement, and you could end up with a situation that's far worse than what you had before. And so I just trying to look at the broad picture here. I could be off base, but that's just the way I see it.
I would make the argument that finding someone worse than Mr. Perry would be a tall order.
Let's keep it
Chris, could you comment further on this in terms of your interpretation?
Well, first, as pointed out, upon request, I did provide the council with a copy of the state code statutory provision that does allow, there is a procedure for removal of someone from public office. And that procedure is pretty straightforward in terms of how you initiate that process. The issue, and going to what Mr. Coker said, is the level of proof, and it is a high bar. And first and foremost, if you choose to move forward, and that is your decision, I would personally recuse myself because I've represented the town clerk, treasurer, as well as the council, and he is a voting member of the town council if and when there's a tie. So I believe that I would have a conflict, something I've already represented to all of you, that you would have to obtain outside counsel. Number two, Mr. Johnstone, if you're asking just specifically, and if I were representing you in this, do I think that those deeds or misdeeds or lack of action that you allege, are they enough? I can't say that with any degree of certainty. I don't know. And I guess that's why we lawyers have jobs, right? It's a gray area. Do I think that you have enough to initiate something, an action that would be that wouldn't be deemed meritless? I do. But does that mean you prevail? That's a whole different ball game. And so, there is expense here, there are appeals, and so that's a decision that you have to make. That Supreme Court case is pretty strong. When you read it, and I know that I've referred to it many times when it's been discussed, that clerk treasurer didn't do that job for a long time, and I was surprised to read it. This has nothing to do with your situation, but when I read it, when I was asked about the scenario here, that was a pretty high bar. So, with that said, it's obviously a tough decision for this council. You do have an avenue to seek removal. Whether you prevail, I couldn't give you a better than 50-50 at best, in my opinion. However, my opinion doesn't matter because I wouldn't be the one representing you in any action.
Thank you.
So I want to say, Tim knows, and I think I'm pretty honest, I felt like I've always been, I haven't been happy with the way the office is run. But when Tim made a stand last week, it has to do with the public safety building. And I've asked several people if my husband and I were going to build a house, and if we didn't have if we didn't have the plans, and we didn't have a building permit, and we didn't have a septic permit, and we didn't have the financing, would we move ahead and order everything? And so I don't disagree with what Tim did to say, wait, let's stop this train and see where we're at. So I would have a hard time supporting getting rid of him.
I would argue that that is not a decision the clerk treasurer is allowed to make.
Boy, I love a good fight, and I ain't never run away from one.
Tim, you're out of order. You're out of order. No, you can't.
So, Chris,
I am running this meeting. You are out of order, sir.
$550K, think about that. Think about that with your sewer foray, okay?
All right.
Think about that.
So, I'll call the question. There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. Another issue. One of the things that we mentioned. Thank you. One of the things that came up in these bills that haven't been paid was the $59 in late fees on our credit card. According to the State Board of Accounts, credit cards, additionally, any interest or penalty incurred due to the late filing or furnishing of documentation by an officer or employee should be the responsibility of that officer or employee. There's $59 this month in late fees, Tim, that you, sir, are personally responsible for. I would appreciate you going back and looking to see how many other late fees there were, because you're responsible for those also, and you will be responsible in the future. What, I'm sorry, we'll see? I expect to see that those were paid. Aren't you tough? All right.
Oh, well.
Resolution regarding LaPorte County EMA mitigation plan.
Do you want me to talk from here?
No, that'd be great, Fran. If you could come forward and introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, because she has to be.
Hi, I'm Fran Tibbet, LaPorte County Emergency Management, and I'm here to answer any questions that you have about the multi-mitigation update. I sent everyone a sample of an adaption that you can look at, recreate it for your own needs. And every 5 years, FEMA asks us to go ahead and update this plan. So we've been working on it with everybody here. I came to a meeting earlier just to talk about it, and then I sent out the questionnaires to every town, every small town in LaPorte City and Michigan City and the county. And this is the one that I sent to you, and with the help of Mark, he helped me out with this, or not me out with this, because I'm not the one that answers the questions. You know, I can talk to him and suggest things, but would you like to see it, or would you pass around, or?
I've
shared.
Good.
Yeah.
I've shared it with
I think, yeah, okay, great. So, also, I did send a sample of the resolution and a sample, or not a sample, but the new plan to everyone also. I also brought it here tonight if you want to take a look at it. It talks, you know, your multi-hazardous mitigation plan talks about your sewers, things that keep us from running into a lot of troubles that cause FEMA, the disasters that we have in the area, your erosion here along the lake. I know not much can be done with that because that's a big lake. But like your sewers, that you're updating some of your sewers that you were talking about. It talks about sirens, you know, how we keep the people safe. Everything in here that earthquakes, you know, what's the probability of having one here in this area, wildfires, extreme temperatures, you know, flooding, and you did answer all the questions, but I just wanted to make sure that you folks got the resolution, the adoption back to me, so I can get it to FEMA. I have to get all the small towns back to them within a reasonable amount of time. Christopher and Burke did the update for us, and they've done it every 5 years for us for the last, I brought them all with me that I've got, so if anybody wanted to look at
So
them,
do we
just in case.
we need to make a motion?
Yeah.
I make that motion that we complete it.
Yeah, you have a resolution that we tailor to the town, working with Chief Swistek, so that's what's before you, that's essentially formally adopting that.
Okay.
So you made the motion to approve the resolution. I'll second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Thank you.
And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, request for relocation of LaPorte County emergency siren.
Okay, we are having a meeting with the commissioners, and we got to know a spot as soon as possible, just so that we can talk to Marquis Electric and get them updated with everything so we know where we're going to put it.
So we've been working with the LaPorte County Emergency Management organization to relocate our current emergency notification siren that is located behind our current fire station in the northern parking lot of the town hall. The current siren is on a pole that is not recommended, therefore it should be at a much higher height than what it is currently at, and it has been malfunctioning as well. So we've been working with Fran and her office to get a new siren for the town of Long Beach that the LaPorte County Commissioners and Council will cover the cost of. Our recommendation to the town council is to move the siren from its current location across the street near the tennis courts, because we have electrical service there, and we just need to find the right spot near the small pavilion across the street to install the new siren. So that would be the recommendation, to allow us to continue to work with EMA to find a location across the street.
On the pole.
And it would be installed on a much higher pole
Right,
than
a
the
higher
current
pole.
one.
So I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
I second it.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, MS4 stormwater permit update.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My deck. Under the current rule, You are required to have a report from me at least once a year, so this is the first time. The MS4 general permit has changed, and that's why things have changed for you. Indiana has gone from rule by permit or permit by rule to general administrative permit. And what that did was it changed your cooperative agreement with LaPorte County. There's no longer a joint permit. You each filed an individual notice of intent, and item will grant each individual entity their own permit. Now, with that said, one of the things that I discovered is that under the co-permit, you paid into a pot of money. That pot of money now sits in the county commission or county council's budget of $80,000. So I have petitioned the commissioner, and he has agreed that the best answer to that is to take the $80,000, divide it 4 ways between the 4 of you, and he has guaranteed me that he would return $20,000 to each community. That is Long Beach, Trail Creek, City of LaPorte, and LaPorte County. There's no way to determine how that money could be divided any other way than equally. So hopefully that will be coming to you. Under my contract with you and under what your requirements were under the new permit is you had to issue a notice of intent. And we did that back in July. You posted the notice, and then we submitted the notice of intent to Item. Item reviewed it, accepted it, and we were good to go. So the next step was submitting your stormwater quality management plan and your water quality characterization report. Those needed to be in by April 1st. They were submitted, they were accepted and approved by Item. So those major components of your permit requirement are done. And for your, I don't know whether you need these, but I wanted to make sure you had them. This is a copy of the Stormwater Quality Management Plan. This is the copy of the additional best management practices. I wanted to bring them in case anybody in the community wanted to see them. There are some other things that are going on now that this is done. You need to think about the next steps. So we need to look at a review of the Stormwater Quality Management Plan, how you're going to implement it, what best management practices you're going to use. Keep in mind that Long Beach is not as big as Michigan City, so you don't have all the elements that they have to be meet, so we would have a lot to change. I've been working very closely with Larry Wall and how he's moving forward. He's gotten his stormwater qualifications, his training certifications, and so we're going to be doing more of that. But the other thing that I do is, as an educator, want to make sure that you're getting the biggest bang for your buck and that there's money out there for you to have. This is the new Coastal Watershed Hazardous Resilience Need Assessment. This comes from NERC. There's also a Lake Michigan Coastal Program grant. I'm the new governor's appointment to that committee. So what I want to do is make sure that any money, any funds that are out there that you are in line for. Another one is the federal funds for well and septic system repairs. So we'll be looking at that. So as we move down the line, we'll be looking at what your needs are, what you can do to meet the water quality standards. There's something interesting about Long Beach is that you don't have a lot of, in fact, I think you just have one, stormwater conveyance underground. Everything is surface runoff. So we're looking at your well and septic systems, your dry wells, all of those issues, and making sure you're up to date. So if there's ever any questions, one of the things also is you need to coordinate. So I'm going to try to make sure that for the park department, for the community, for any of these groups that are meeting, that they know who I am and where I'm at and how they can work with me so I can help them with their funds or their projects or whatever they're doing. Okay. Are there any questions about the stormwater program?
Now, Reggie, that $20,000, can that go into general funds? Or
that could go anywhere you want to put it.
Okay.
Reggie, where are you located then?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you have an office?
Yeah, we have Butler, Fairman, and Seifert's main office is in Indianapolis. We have an office in Maryville. I live in Porter, the town of Porter. I've been here most of my life. My grandparents started Anderson Orchards out in Jackson Township. I also teach at IU Spear Graduate School, so I'm there too.
Okay.
So one of the things with this permit, keep in mind, is that you never reinvent the wheel. We take a look at what's out there, we see what fits with the community, and we try to integrate it into that so that money is a big thing. So we try to be as efficient as we possibly could be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Reggie. Okay, Haas Engineering, private Lakeshore Drive sewers. Anybody here from Haas?
They're coming in.
This is Haas, giving us passing on.
You're next.
Good evening, Tim Haas with Haas Associates here to talk about the private sanitary sewer on Lakeshore Drive that is being planned right now and seeking your approval, perhaps contingent approval, contingent upon whatever items that are need to be in the contingency. But we're asking for this because the process to get ultimate approval for this project is lengthy, and approvals are contingent upon each other. We can't move to the next step for approval until we have some type of an approval from the town of Long Beach. The next step would then be to get the Michigan City Council approval. Once we have their approval, then we can go to the Sanitary District of Michigan City for their approval. Once we have theirs, we can go to the Indiana Department of Environmental Management for their approval, and that could take somewhere in the range of 3 months. So the goal is to begin construction after Labor Day this year. In order to meet that kind of a time frame, we need to move forward with getting approvals. As I said, one of them alone could take 3 months to get. So 3 months on to 5 is August. So that's what I'm here to talk about.
So can you share with us, is it 5 residents?
Currently it's 5. The sanitary district in Michigan City, they have limited the maximum number of connections to this private sewer to 10.
Okay.
So someday there could be as many as 10 connected. Initially, only 5. And they're all congregated approximately around stop 22.
On the lakeside?
Yeah, all of them are, these 5 are on Pump and Haul.
Okay.
So they're on the lakeside.
And Tim, you were going to share with us more detailed plans from our last meeting. We were concerned about any detrimental effect on Lakeshore Drive and Chastleton. I haven't seen those yet. Are you going to share those with us?
Yes, what happened is we're waiting for some investigatory work. It's commonly referred to as potholing, wherein a hole is dug to verify the exact location of the existing utility that's there, both, in the X, Y, and Z coordinate system, so that then Woodruff and Sons will be the contractor that this group of 5 is hiring, and then Woodruff and Sons can take a look at everything along with their subcontractor who's going to do the horizontal directional drilling and look to change the alignment. If there's possible ways to change the alignment of the proposed force main that's going to be in the right-of-way, such that the work can be limited as far as any excavations within pavement, within street pavement on Chastleton and or Lakeshore Drive. On Lakeshore Drive, it's around 800 feet of pipe put in to serve those 5 homes, and it'll be 3-inch diameter PVC pipe installed by horizontal directional drilling, and I'll be happy to tell you what that is if anybody is interested. But that section would be mostly outside of the pavement the two travel lanes of Lakeshore Drive. It'll be on the north side of the travel lanes. One of the issues there is there's an existing gas main in that space. So the contractors need to verify that they feel comfortable that they have enough room to put it there and to put it far enough off the north edge of the driving lanes that it will not affect demolition of the driving lanes. Now in Chastleton, it's a whole different story because there's utilities on both sides of the road and there's a lot of different options. That has not been nailed down yet. So, Chairman and President, in answer to your question, that information will be forthcoming. It just has not been gathered in its entirety yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to see that before we can give approval, because I feel strongly that while this is a great project, I think, you know, this is not as good as having a sewer down Lakeshore Drive, but it will take care of the problem we were trying to solve. On the other hand, there should be no detrimental effect to the town of Long Beach's roadways for sure. You know, those roads are going to have to be closed for a period of time, and that's going to inconvenience people. I think we can live with that, but again, detrimental effect to Chastleton and Lakeshore Drive in terms of how soon we have to repave those because of this project, I think that needs to be nailed down.
Yeah, that definitely is something that I think everyone is aware of, that in order to get the final approval of the town council, that would all have to be in black and white on paper and agreed to by all parties. So there's no doubt about that, and I by no means am trying to skirt that issue with what I'm asking for tonight.
Any other questions?
So what are you asking for approval subject to what President LeMay indicated?
Like a conditional type approval, an approval contingent upon satisfaction of the town's, you know, review and approval of the final plans, the final agreement, the final location, you know, whatever all you'd like to have in that.
Well, it seems to me that you've already given that conditional approval, which was essentially a commitment that you were here months ago asking for, which assisted your clients in making the investment and moving forward. You know, this might be, not to give you more work, but you might consider, after understanding what your drop dead dates are. I know August is your date, but when is this portion? Sooner than later? What's the latest that you can have this agreement and stay on track with what you're doing?
Well,
and here's the reason I'm asking. This might be something that's worth having a special meeting over, not to create more work for everybody, but so that you can focus on, here's what the plans are. You can have a workshop to discuss exactly what's here. Mr. Wojcik and I have had discussions, as I've informed everybody of, preliminarily, you know, conceptually this isn't something new, it's just a little bit bigger scale. You know, I don't think that anybody has expressed they're not in favor of it, but to give conditional approval, like I said, I believe that you voted months ago that you're in favor of doing this. It's just the basics of what goes in this agreement and moving forward. So I don't know if that helps you or hinders you at all. But I think that might be so that Mr. Wojcik and I could reduce some portions of this, and there are other forms, so we're not necessarily reinventing the wheel on all of this, but put some things down in black and white for everybody to consider and for you to make a decision. And if the June meeting suffices, great. If it's something, if you're requesting that and the council's inclined to do that, you know, that's another avenue.
I think from a timing perspective, what we're trying to do is get on the city council agenda. And so if we could get conditional approval with some specific conditions, then that will enable us to get on the city council agenda next week.
For Michigan
So
City.
I think what we're trying to define is what's the conditions that you're asking us to provide?
Well, and I think that our portion, and sorry to take the council's time, our portion is much more complex than what the city council. The city council ultimately wants you to waive whatever remonstrates, or that's the only thing that you're going before them. And that's become a non-factor. Right. So for you to get on their agenda, they're not requiring anything of the town. Before, when you went and you wanted with the sanitary district, they wanted to know that you have the town's blessing conceptually, and you have that. So my opinion is that it shouldn't hold anything up as long as you're generally committed to working out the details of it and in favor of the project. It seems to me that you're safe to go before the city council. That is just marching through what their latest ordinance is to say, we want you for a period of 15 years to waive remonstrance rights if annexation becomes an issue. Right? So I don't think that hurts anything, but then your commitment to allow me to work with Mr. Wojcik and reduce to the agreement is what we really need to, that's the crux.
So, we've had a couple of brief meetings with the engineer and the contractor just to get a rough feel for what was going on with Mark and myself and the street department. So we were trying to get up to speed with the particulars. So in terms of the conditional items that we're talking about, it's not a long laundry list. Essentially, what we're talking about is some liability issues for maintenance and that sort of thing long term. And then in terms of the project itself, I think it was more about, size of holes, location of holes, whether or not we'd have repaving of certain segments of the road as opposed to just patching the holes. So we've kind of, correct me if I'm wrong here, we've tried to identify some of that up front now with the engineer so that we've got a rougher, a little tighter idea about what we're talking about for conditions. I'd be comfortable with that conditional approval if that's what you actually need this evening, but I agree with Chris. We've conceptually, I think, from my understanding, I think it was a unanimous decision that we were all in favor of the project.
Right.
So if you want to reiterate that, subject to those conditions and reducing it all to writing in an agreement that's approved by all parties, if that makes you feel more comfortable to go to the next level, I think you're certainly well within your bounds to do that.
Get you close enough, or?
Yeah, I think that we're just trying to, if you want to call it the punch list of what you're expecting or what you're looking for. So you're saying like liability for maintenance, size of the holes.
One of our issues with that, John, is if everybody sells their property 10 years from now, and now all of a sudden in the middle of the winter time there's sewage bubbling up to the street, who do we go to? So and I know you guys have had some conversation about the legal issues. I think there's got to be a little comfort level at the final approval. There's got to be a little comfort level about some of those kinds of things on the legal side. As far as the project goes, it's not very dramatic. It's basically just how big of an area are we going to ask for repaving? Mm-hmm. In addition to just patching, and then if there's a time frame between patching and resurfacing, those are the technical things that I'm concerned about. I think between Mark and Tom and myself
and I anticipate, unless you say differently, that you're going to contract with the sanitary district to manage this and take care and maintenance. Yes, are you handling that all yours?
And then maybe some sort of maintenance bond, John. Again, if the property changes hands, we don't want to be left holding a dripping bag of literal. So, if there's a way to, and I know you guys, I'm sure you've gone down this road already, but those are the things that came up in our discussions with the engineer. I'd be comfortable making a motion unless somebody else has some more specific questions to that effect, to those 4 or 5 things we just mentioned, as being something that needs to be hammered out between now and the final. And I'd make a motion that we would give conditional approval based on those.
And it doesn't matter in terms of the maintenance or however those, it's just whose liability and if who answers to the town if there's an issue. So all of those things we can address in the agreement, so that if you authorize me to work with Mr. Wojcik, we can have a proposed agreement. And then is your pleasure that it comes back before you for approval at next month's meeting? And does that serve your purpose?
I don't know if that's reasonable.
Because Michigan City Council meets twice a month, so you getting on that agenda is fairly easy.
So some of these technical things may need a little bit more homework on the part of the engineering firm. So,
but Tim, who maintains the line once it's built? The sanitary district or the homeowners?
The sanitary district has thus far indicated they are not interested in being responsible for operation and maintenance of the system.
So that's one of the things we
Well, we have sewers where we live.
Well, that's different.
The sanitary district owns those.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, they,
This is a totally private deal, so
Okay.
we have to make sure the i's are crossed, i's
Okay.
are dotted, t's are crossed.
so where that leaves the LLC that owns the sewer, is they will be responsible to have an agreement with a construction-type contractor who is familiar with how to maintain this kind of a system and be on call and things like that. So, then
Have insurance.
they have insurance.
So they won't pay a monthly fee like we do to Michigan City Sanitary?
They'll be invoiced monthly.
They will.
Well, then why wouldn't they be covered?
It's a private line.
He doesn't want to own this.
Okay. Okay. All right.
And what prevents the LLC from going belly up?
In terms of,
We're done. We're, you see, sewer's bubbling up in the street and the LLC is defunct.
they would, I think that what you would have is that the LLC is going to have a requirement to have insurance. And that insurance would provide that liability, and it'd be a forever type of insurance. That's going to be annually renewable, or you could have something to the effect that, you know, like you frequently see is that, let's say the policy renewal date's June 1st, that by maybe April 1st, you got to give evidence that it's going to be renewed. But we would, that risk can be managed through insurance.
But if they just say, no, we're not paying the insurance, and they all walk away and move to
I
Timbuktu.
think theoretically, that's an argument, but realistically, if you think of these homeowners, that'd be the last thing in the world they'd want to have happen.
Well,
Members of this LLC would want to have happen.
If one starts leaving, then they all have to pay more. Two start leaving, they all have to pay that much more. I mean, these things can happen.
They wouldn't be able to get rid of their waste, and so the homeowners gonna wanna make sure that they've got sewer facilities. I mean, they'd never be able to sell their house.
Right.
And I think some of this could start to separate itself and as we delve into it, get it reduced to writing, right? Some of that responsibilities, maybe personal guarantees, we can address those, but again.
If what I'm suggesting is sufficient, then we can have this work session sometime in the future, unless you need us to have this conditional thing ironed out to the point where more than the detail we just discussed.
I think we prefer to have the conditional approval now, and like tomorrow or Wednesday, I could email Mr. Willoughby, and I think that we could kind of, I think, commonly define what these half a dozen points are.
Except they'll be subject to council approval because I won't have the authority. But sure, I think theoretically and conversationally, we can do that to move it down the road. There's no reason that if those final plans or whatever Dr. Lemay and the council has requested, you guys are able to review those, that within the next month that you could have all of this worked out.
So do you need anything more from us than what you already have? Because you already have kind of conditional approval of the project, right?
Is there a resolution that we've got conditional approval?
Didn't we pass something already?
There isn't. What we're basing that comment is months ago, Mr. Haas was before the council as a good faith. There is no actual resolution or agreement, memorandum of understanding. The council has just previously committed, which again, it was before your clients took a leap of faith of investing the money to even investigate this project further.
Okay, so can we ask for a motion and for conditional approval at this meeting tonight?
We can. It doesn't hurt it. You're just reiterating.
I'm already there.
For
I think that's what I said. I don't know if we got a second or not, but
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, cool.
All right. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, flag donation / installation.
LaPorte County business owner Jim Roy, who owns the floor store in LaPorte, annually donates 3x5 American flags, along with the mounting bracket and the poles, to communities across LaPorte County. Last year, he generously donated to the city of LaPorte. I believe in some, he donated roughly over 600 flags. This year, I've been working with Mr. Roy, and he would like to make a generous donation to the town of Long Beach with 20 3x5 American flags to include the mounting brackets and the poles. It's approximately a $1,000 donation, and my recommendation to the council would be to allow us to put several of these along Chastleton Drive as you enter into the town of Long Beach, and then maybe also around our tennis court, community center, other points of interest within the community. And I would just respectfully ask that we accept his donation and therefore allow us to put the flags up sometime just prior, hopefully, to Memorial Day.
I make that motion that we accept his generous donation.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 I'm gonna make one quick comment. I would, if there's a way to limit the time frame a little bit, I worry sometimes, we throw something like that up and then in the middle of winter, they're flapping in the breeze.
I would agree. Jim even recommended maybe we put them up after Memorial Day so they can go into the July 4th holiday and that. So maybe we look at sometime mid-June. I'll work with our street department on the locations. But thank you. Great question.
All right, July 4th parade / fireworks civic approval. I make a motion, we approve the parade and fireworks.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
July 8th, street closure request, Britt Whitfield.
Yes, annually, Britt Whitfield at 2600 Belle Plaine has held a community picnic in the summer. This year, she is asking for a street closure on July 8th. The street closure would encompass in front of her home, which would be near the community center, and it would extend to Belle Plaine at the intersection of Floral Drive. Last year, we had fielded just a handful of concerns from residents. I have since met with Ms. Whitfield last week to address some of those concerns, and she has guaranteed us that, one, there will be an alcohol permit that will be managed by Blind Pig Catering. They will be filing for the Alcohol Beverage Commission permit for the day in question. The street closure, the residents along the 2-block area that this will affect have no objections according to Mrs. Whitfield. Certificate of liability for insurance. In previous years, we did not have a certificate of liability. Since a portion of the celebration will be on the town's roadway, she will provide that to us prior to the event, and we'll share that with our attorney for review. Music, last year we had complaints that the music was at an excessive level and that it went to midnight. This year she has agreed to lower the overall volume of the music, and we have agreed to 11:30 p.m. instead of a midnight for the termination of the music. Off-duty police officers, the event has grown in size over the past several years. Ms. Whitfield has agreed to hire 2 off-duty police officers that she shall compensate on her own from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. This will be 1 hour before the start of the event and 1 hour after the conclusion of the event. She has also asked for the community center gym rental, which the community center board has approved. That will be a $1,000 donation to the town, $500 per day for July 7th and July 8th. And then lastly, she has asked for a rain date for the event. If the weather is not doable for the 8th, she has asked for Sunday, July 9th. I have spoke to our full-time staff at the police department. They have no objections to any of the things that I have just mentioned, and the recommendation would be to allow the street closure to occur once we get the verification of the certificate of liability for the insurance.
Make a motion to approve a request.
I second it.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Community center landscape donation.
Also, Britt Whitfield of 2600 Belle Plaine in previous years has made some generous donations to the town. This year, she would like to donate to the Long Beach Community Center. Her donation would be for landscaping improvements at the southeastern portion of the community center. This would be located at the backside of the gym, which would be the drive that leads towards the cooling tower at the back of the facility. She has provided, and I've made extra copies if anybody would like to review the landscaping plan. This landscaping plan is just a tentative plan. I spoke to two of the community center board members today. They have some concerns about the maple trees that are proposed near the cooling tower because of the shedding of the leaves that could cause an issue with cooling tower, which I do agree. So we will be working with her landscape professional to adjust the landscaping plan. There would also be a segment of concrete that would be poured off of the current asphalt driveway to allow for the relocation of the dumpster. The request tonight is for the town to allow us to accept the donation, which would be approximately $20,000 to $25,000 for the landscaping improvements. There would be no invoicing to the town. The invoicing would be directly to Ms. Whitfield personally, and this would also be subject to a building permit and the review and approval by the building commission. So tonight's recommendation is to allow us to move forward with this project, and then we'll refer it to the community center board first, and then after that we'll refer it to the building commission for final approval.
So Mark, she wants to give the town $25,000 and she's going to pay the contractor.
That would be the cost of the work and everything. So she's not going to donate to the town per se. She's going to cover the cost of all the work directly to the vendors.
Got it.
So no check, no funds coming to the town. She would file, or her contractors would file for a building permit, and then she would pay each of the vendors for the work.
Okay.
Also, I would like to add, oh, I'm sorry, I'll add after you discuss this, I'm sorry.
The only other thing I would mention, Mark, is the drainage back there is pretty perilous. We've had issues before with water getting in the building, so whatever we do back there, I know Tom's aware of this, you may not be because just you haven't been around long enough, but I think we need to pay particular attention, maybe get some shots back there, so whatever goes on, that we address where the water's going, because it's a real problematic area back there. Not so much where your cooling tower is, but up by the gym doors.
Correct, and there would obviously be locates, and then there is a holding tank in there along with the septic field that's out there, and we would have to work around those several items to make sure that none of that is interrupted as well. But thank you.
So Chris, that permit to the building commission would have to kind of be a co-permit from Britt Whitfield and from the town, since it's on town property, is that correct?
In the town.
So that she's going to give it to us and we'll submit it.
That's,
okay.
Yeah, you'll be the signatory.
All right.
I make a motion to approve it.
I guess we approve it going forward because it's going to go through other steps, but I'll second that motion, yeah.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Doc, I have just a little bit more information to add. I failed to mention on the street closure request, the July 8th annual summer celebration. Ms. Whitfield had shared with us also that during that event, she, along with several of her family and friends and participants of the event, will be hosting a fundraising event for the town of Long Beach. She has assured us that their goal is that a minimum of $25,000 be raised during this event, and all proceeds would be donated to the town of Long Beach, and she would ask that those funds be utilized for the new public safety facility that is being built for the town as well. And she has asked that I share that information with you, and that she would be working on the fundraising details and would then provide us with no less than a $25,000 donation once the July event is over.
So in essence, it is $25,000 plus she pays the contractors.
Correct.
Sounds better and better. All right, street paving request outside of CCMG program.
So, you know, we have our CCMG programs. We've had a lot of success with those over the years. We've done, you know, almost over a couple of $1 million worth of paving projects in the town. It's a program that allows us to only pay 25% of the bill essentially, along with some engineering costs. The problem is we have some areas in the town that are not able to be put on INDOT, which is Indiana Department of Transportation's list of streets in our town. They're considered alleys, so they're not able to use, we cannot use those in a CCMG project. So what we've done is we've gone out with the contractor that's been awarded the CCMG project this year and taken a look at some areas that have long been a problem. I think Mark sent out a sheet earlier today to everybody on the council, but essentially what it is, it's about $60,000 roughly of improvements to various smaller paving areas. In years past, we used to do $100,000 to $200,000, $150,000 worth of paving. So what our hope is that we have enough money in the accounts that are still haven't been touched on the street and paving budgets in the town itself to be able to pick up the cost for these additional improvements or a portion thereof. So I guess tonight we had hoped to have from the clerk's office a better idea where we stood on affordability in terms of the accounts for the street department and the highway funds. We don't have that information, so what we'll do, if we'd like, I'd like to make a motion tonight to have us approve this expenditure, with the exception that at the Budget and Finance, hopefully at the Budget and Finance, Tim thinks maybe we'll have those dollars available in the morning. Well, the hope is that we could have those amounts in the morning. If we can't, then we just have to tell them it's going to. Yeah, I get you. Oh, okay. Do we have that information this evening? We do? Okay. Well, yeah, we could, I mean, if it's going to be available tomorrow, that would be sufficient as long as the council's going to go along with doing a conditional approval based on affordability. I'm going to make the assumption we're going to have 60,000 in those accounts. We just want to verify that before we spend it. But I'd like the council's approval on a motion. I'll make the motion that we approve that roughly $60,000. In fact, we probably ought to jump it up a little bit just in case they run into any problems. But I'd say, why don't we just say $70,000 worth of improvements for non-CCMG paving project for the coming year. The reason this has to be decided tonight, I'm sorry I didn't make that clear in my preamble here. The contractor hopes to do this work before Memorial Day on the CCMG project. It's a relatively short duration. It's not that much work. While they're here, these prices are based on the fact that they're here without another mobilization. So that's why we're kind of pushing this evening. So I guess my motion is to make this 70,000 available plus or minus for this not to exceed for this additional paving project, subject to affordability based on what we've got in those accounts in the MVH and the street department accounts.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Abstain.
Oh, one abstention and 4 in favor, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, quote to Holloway's spring leaf collection.
Annually, Jacob Filipovich handles our spring leaf removal from the town this year. We just completed that a week ago. It went exceptionally well. We've collected the debris and the leaves. It was a smaller amount than in years past. Typically, we would spend $5,000 to $8,000 in the spring for the removal. This year's invoice is $2,000 for the removal. Just looking for a recommendation to pay Jacob Filipovich the $2,000 for the spring leaf removal and debris removal.
I make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Do we know what we paid last year for this service?
I do not, but the street superintendent informed me it was $5,000 to $8,000 roughly in that range, so substantially less this year.
Why is it less?
There was less to remove this year. Not as many leaves were put out in the spring. So.
Really? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Fire truck financing plan.
Oh, you forgot the trees.
Trees.
In the right of way.
Oh, I'm sorry, request to remove town trees in the right of way.
Street Superintendent Tom Dolph has been conducting an assessment of trees located on the town's right-of-way and in the town's parks throughout the community. He has located 7 trees, and I will briefly list those. One's located at 2023 Oriole Trail, another located at 3007 Northmore Drive, 2 trees located at Melrose Park, 1 tree at Stop 30 along Lakeshore Drive on the right-of-way, and then one at 2966 Lakeshore Drive. And then lastly, there's another tree at 2624 Roslyn Trail. All of these trees have been deemed dangerous, and the majority of them are dead in nature. Therefore, we have sought 2 quotes for the removal of the trees from the town's right-of-ways. We only received 1 quote from Maple City Tree. The other vendor had reached back out to us and said they were unable to perform the work. The initial estimates were that this project would cost the town approximately $10,000, and we were able to secure a quote for $7,050, which would be for the taking down of the trees, complete removal of any and all dead limbs and the other debris from these locations. Street Superintendent Dolph has recommended that the town council move forward with this expenditure.
I make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are the stumps going to be removed too?
I am not clear. Let's see.
Yeah, it's included in there.
Is it?
On the description.
Okay.
Ground.
Below, yes, below grade. Correct, yeah.
They don't take them out, they just grind them down to about 18 inches below grade.
John, Tom shared with me this morning too, there might be another tree, if you want to describe that tree that's not on here that we just found.
Right, I got a resident called or talked to me over the weekend. I actually caught him at church, but he wanted to have Tom, and I think Tom may have gone down and looked at it today.
He did today.
It's near the pumping station down there, and apparently there's a bunch of dead trees. He's got his the kids' playground's right behind there. I shouldn't say dead trees, dead limbs at least. So I think Tom is going to look at that. I have not spoken to Tom this evening, so I don't know.
I did this afternoon. He did look at the tree near the intersection of Mount Clair and Oriole. That particular tree, Tom says, is in need of removal. It kind of splits off. Part of it is hanging over the roadway. The other part is hanging over the residents' property. However, it is a town tree on the town right-of-way. Tom estimates it would be approximately $2,000, no greater than to take that tree down. So if we were to add that tree to this, we're looking at an expenditure of about $9,050. I don't have what's in the current account, but that's what the expenditure would be if we added an 8th tree to this list.
I'm not sure if we even have an account for tree removal. I think we
do.
We do, okay.
We do. We used it already this year for the tree trimming across the street near the pavilion and the tennis courts. And I believe that was roughly a $7,000 expenditure. I'm not for certain. So
we've got a motion and a second to do the trees excluding the one we just talked about.
I'll move to amend to include that tree.
Okay.
I think if that's just Tom's thumbnail estimate, maybe we ought to just say 10,000 for now and to make sure that he gets.
Yeah, not to exceed 10,000.
Yeah.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Fire truck financing plan.
This is just on the agenda because we didn't want to lose track of it. I think this is something we can address at the budget and finance meeting, but essentially we're just trying to keep that on the front, not the front burner, but certainly not let it slide all the way until the truck gets delivered and we don't know how we're paying for it. So it's just a
FYI.
Placeholder.
Interlocal agreement between Long Beach and LaPorte County regarding inspections. I think that's electrical inspections, right?
Is this similar to the one we did a year or two ago?
Yeah, I think the one we had expired, correct?
Yes, and in communicating with Chief Swistek, if you were inclined, we can approach the county and just renew that agreement. And they were place filler. The county is willing to perform, various services if and when necessary. So that interlocal agreement, I believe that's who we've continued to use. So that just needs to be updated and get a new agreement and maybe have that for signature at next month's meeting.
I'd make a motion to renew that agreement.
I second it.
Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, authorization for Sender and Company's additional accounting assistance.
This is another budget and finance item. We'll be discussing it in a little more detail tomorrow morning at the budget and finance meeting, but essentially what we'd like to have the the temperature of the council on is a little more involvement on Sender's part. We've done this in the past where we had them come in and do a little bit of a deep dive just to make sure everything's kosher on our accounting records. And we'd like to just have that again, which will involve some expenditure. Essentially, we've already authorized this over the year or two that I've been involved. So I think as long as the council doesn't have any objection, we'll have them have a little more further involvement in terms of some analyzing of the financial reports. And then also what we'd like to propose is to have somebody in here on a periodic basis, whether that's weekly or bi-weekly, whatever it takes to assist in the treasurer, or rather the clerk treasurer's office's functions. Mike, I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to add to that, but Mike and I have spent some time on coming up with some priorities that we'll be discussing at the Budget and Finance meeting tomorrow morning. And then we'd just like the council's general temperature here on whether you're amenable to having us
Well, I think everybody knows that I prefer to have Baker Tilly do this. I've worked with them for over 20 years, and I know what they can provide us. And I think they'd be able to give us a lot of satisfaction or comfort, and to make sure everything is done correctly. Not that it's not being done correctly, but it's just we will be getting better reports. Is what I'm trying to say.
Well, and since they own Civic, it would be a lot easier to utilize them.
My feeling is we wouldn't gain a whole lot of benefit changing horses in midstream myself. I don't know that we need two accountants involved.
Is Carl Sender a CPA?
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't say so on his website.
Mary Lou's a municipal accountant of quite note.
He's a consultant.
Are we talking about changing accountants? Or are we talking about, my understanding with Baker Tilly's involvement at the current situation was that they were going to assist with the implementation of the Civic software cloud transformation. Is that what that's going on as we speak, I thought, right? Yeah. That they're already helping with the transition on the cloud. Is that correct?
They're helping. And our feeling in my office is that Baker Tilly would be better versed at doing some of our accounting work, at least because they understand their software system. But
this is the first I've heard that we were going to try to change horses in midstream here. Mike?
I'm trying not to have feedback here. I think, John, the one thing we want to consider here is utilizing our resources as they are best qualified. For example, in the case of Baker Tilly and Civic, that makes a lot of sense. There's some areas where Carl Sender's firm is closer to some of our systems that might be beneficial to us as well. So I think what we ought to do is utilize our resources based on what we think is the most qualified for the time being, and then we can settle in 6 months from now. That'd be my recommendation.
And I retract that. Chris just showed me on Carl's website, he is a CPA.
So to revisit what my original comment was, is the council's temperature such that we would incur a little more cost to have Sender just do a little more involvement than we've had recently? That's really where I'm at.
I'd rather have Baker Tilly.
Well, either way, you're going to spend more money. So why don't we go back to Budget and Finance, discuss it tomorrow morning? That'd be my recommendation.
That's true. I mean, we already have a contract with Sender in terms of hourly rates and that sort of thing anyway, so this is almost just a temperature sort of thing. We don't need a motion, I don't believe.
Okay.
We're already under contract with them, so if the Budget and Finance group decides to change horses, I guess we can talk about that then.
Yeah.
We don't have a contract, on the other hand, with Baker Tilly for general accounting services, so
but apparently not for general, no.
Yeah, so what my understanding is, right now, we're limiting Baker Tilly's involvement to the software update and the cloud initiation.
Right.
And we're not changing that as far as I'm concerned. At the current rating, we may change it. But we don't have a wholesale contract right now, in my understanding. The only thing Baker Tilly has done.
Helen, you're out of order. Yeah.
What you guys don't understand, we have a contract with Baker Tilly on Civic. When we call their accountants come on at no charge to us, and they help to identify where we have coding and programming issues. Sender cannot do that kind of work. That's where Baker Tilly is important.
Oh, Helen, you need to come up here.
I have a very bad problem right now. Baker Tilly is very important to
Thanks, Chris.
help us to.
It's on already, just leave.
To help us make that transition to the cloud, and I've brought this up. I'm angry right now because I don't feel good. And I have brought this up and fought with you guys for months. When I sit here and listen to everyone talk about the bank and do this and that, you don't understand.
Helen,
no,
tone it down.
Okay, I'll tone it down. Okay, but I have told you guys for months, we can't do anything in banking until we go in with Civic and Baker Tilly and reconstruct and recode and program everything in the system that will allow us to be able to utilize a better banking system. It doesn't happen like that. And my hands and the clerk's departments have been tied by the nonsense and the harassment and all of the threats and yelling that's been done at us. I'm exhausted from this. And to sit here and have you sit, oh, Cinder this and Baker Tilly that. You don't listen to the people who know, who've tried to advise you, who've tried to tell you, this is where we stand. Yeah, you have $4 million, but you can't spend it all. You got a paving thing and you got to come up with money. Where are you going to get that from? None of you, including you, Mr. Wall, understand fund accounting. When I get a request, what's the tree fund? The tree fund is an account, not a fund. I've tried to teach you guys how the system works and how funds work and what your limitations are, and I have gotten nothing out of you.
Thanks.
And that's it.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to make a couple of comments now because I was personally attacked. So let's just be clear. I don't disagree. You've done some wonderful things. We've had some stumbles over the last year or two. We've tried to do the right thing. You've come in here, you've done a lot of systems analysis. As you know, I think you and I have had a lot of conversations over the times we've gotten together. I appreciate everything you've done. On the other hand, what I have to share with the town is it's our responsibility as town council members to make sure that all these reports are done and that when the SBOA comes in, we have accurate records. We've been promised and told over the last 4 or 5 months that this was going to happen. For whatever reason, it hasn't happened. So things like what John shared a meeting ago and tonight as well, is that we're missing out on some opportunities with laddering with CDs on the extra funds. You know, I don't need to be told by you that we have certain funds that need to be spent certain ways. I understand that. I appreciate your comments. Helen, just let me finish. All we need to do together is sit down and decide what the priorities are, and that's what Mike and I intend to do in the morning, so that we're all on the same page with priorities. There's some things that we were promised 4, 5, 6 months ago that have not happened. We need to make sure what's going on in terms of these funds and where the cash is and what we're doing with it. Those management decisions can only be made if the information is accurate. So that's what we're talking about doing. That's all there is to it. We just want to get the information accurate, make sure that when we hand this off at the end of my term, we've got accurate information and somebody has systems in place. And I thought we had an agreement about that, you and I, but apparently there's a problem with that agreement. So let's get together on the budget. Hopefully you can be at the Budget and Finance Committee in the morning. And we'll all sit down and we'll hammer some of these priorities out. We'll put some time frames to it so that we can have some comfort that these things get done. Because when it goes, a month or so, okay. If it's a one-off, there's something going on where we can't get something done, that's understandable. The problem comes in when it's 4 or 5 months and all of a sudden, well, I know. So we've shared these, well, you were frustrated tonight, I get that. By the same token, on our, being at the management level, we get frustrated too when we don't feel like things are getting done. So not to question your motivation or what you've done in the past, but we've got some deadlines here. We've got budget, as you know, we've got budget process coming up right after June. It's already, a week into May. These things have got to get done. So that's my personal comments, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so this is going to go to Budget and Finance tomorrow.
Yes.
Last item, workstation for Honor Adams. Kim, you have some comments on that?
It's not my item. I said last time she can stay where she's at. I don't think there's another spot for her. It sometimes infringes on the things I'm speaking about because they're not always for her ears, but until there's a viable solution for where to put her, I'm not complaining.
Dr. LeMay, we received a request from the employee since she no longer is directly under the supervision of the clerk treasurer. She has asked to switch work positions with the deputy clerk that's currently located in the hallway, and then the clerk in the hallway who works directly under the supervision of the clerk treasurer would then go into the workstation that the building commission secretary is currently working in. She has asked for that through my office. Today she was working here in the council meeting room because she didn't feel comfortable working in her current workstation, and my recommendation would be is that we just flip-flop the two workstations that the two employees are currently working.
I mean, that's fine with me, and I don't know why she wasn't comfortable today because I wasn't in there today, but I would support that change. Helen has some more confidential documents at her disposal, so they probably would be better locked in my office.
So you're good with that change?
Yes.
I don't even know that we need to vote on that. I think that's, well, I guess honor works for the building commission, so, but I guess, yeah, I'd like to go on record as saying, yeah, we have no problem with that. Does that sound okay? All right. Public comments. People on Zoom, anybody want to say anything on Zoom? Okay, and here, and again, we're going to limit to 3 minutes. Go ahead, anybody? Raise your hand if you want to talk.
Okay, good evening, Dr. LeMay and the Long Beach Town Council.
I'm sorry, you need to identify yourself?
Jim Nile, 2201. Thank you for a very entertaining, it makes me feel so much better in my own life. I have 2 questions for you, Dr. LeMay, I think you can answer. At the end of your discussion of the private sewer system, there was a vote taken. Could you tell me what that vote was about?
Basically said that we have no problem with them assuming we have no problem with the project, assuming we can come to an agreement, basically. It didn't say a whole lot.
And my second question is that the Indiana legislature session has been completed. House Bill 1404 was a concern of our community. Is it safe to say, and have you had a report from our Chris Gibson, that no amendments from House Bill 1404 made it into law?
Anything that did make it is not of any detriment to the town of Long Beach. We were successful with that. Something passed, but again, it doesn't adversely affect us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Reggie. Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to respond to the constant attacks against the town clerk. I've been in the audience all done, and I've noticed that not only members of the town council, but some of the community members have been very hostile toward him. I don't know, to me it's an he said situation. I don't know all the ins and outs, so I can't comment as to who's right or who's wrong. But I think it's quite a great concerning, especially in light of the fact that as a community member for 67 years in Long Beach, I'm always surprised. I'll just say this briefly and then I'll get off. We had to find out that there was a decision to shoot the deer, and we had to come out and fight that. It was kind of done behind our back. There was a decision, apparently now, I saw the yellow flags, I asked certain people what was that all about. Now, I guess we're going to tear up the street going up Jefferson from 22 for private sewers for the people on the lakeshore side. I understand that. I was calling here saying that the advantages are coming back in the 90s. I knew that if we built, having seen the house fall in the lake in the 80s, that we would be in trouble.
people, but it is what it is. But I wish you would inform people more. And to criticize them at this point about the town clerk, when we're behind and we're being sued because we didn't come up with the correct date, and we're being sued allegedly by Michigan City for over $500,000 plus fees and fines and lawyer fees. And you were late on all of that, and then to criticize him, I don't understand that. So I just wish you'd be more forthcoming. You wouldn't be so hostile, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Anybody else on Zoom? Reggie, you wanted to say something?
Just a reminder
Yep.
from a stormwater perspective.
You're supposed to, yeah.
Is it turned on?
I don't know. I can't tell from here.
Reggie, can you turn that on? Will you turn it on?
Press the button down and hold it just for a second or two, and then, there you go.
Okay. Just as a reminder for stormwater, when you have a private citizen, which I think is fabulous that she's going to donate the landscape and whatever other work, let's just make sure that the contractor she hires has stormwater, maybe impervious or pervious surfaces put in, and native trees that we could get probably for nothing. So.
Good. Thank you. Other comments? Council comments?
I have a couple of questions, if that's okay.
Come on up. Identify yourself.
Hello, everybody. Mike Perry. My father was Tim Perry. I'm from 1802 Lakeshore Drive. So I try to not tune into all this as much as I can, and try to be my dad and myself kind of out of this. I know there's a lot of stuff that's always bouncing around, but I just was curious. I had a couple high-level questions. I've heard a little bit about the public safety building, and I've heard specifically something about a 20-year lease, something like that. I was just a little curious what it looks like after that 20-year lease and what happens when that ends. And I understand that some people are taking ownership of the property, so I'm just kind of curious. And yeah.
When the lease ends, the town owns it.
I'm sorry?
When the lease ends, the town owns the building.
I gotcha. So the ownership comes back to the town after the payments are made.
That's correct.
Okay. That's great. Thank you.
Council comments?
Wait a minute.
What?
There's another person.
Hi, Larry Barna here. Question, you said it goes back to the town. I went through that entire lease. I had an opportunity to do it, and I got experience with contracts and leases. I had my own company, or my rental company, and I did contracts for NIPSCO for over 20 years. I read that thing specifically, and it tells you after the term of the lease is up, it gets returned back to the building corporation. You guys need to read the lease.
Chris, do you want to comment?
Well, first I want to remind, as I always do during public comment, that it isn't a dialogue, but at your request, I would just refer you to paragraph 11 of the lease, which indicates that if none of the other options in terms of paying it off early or buying it, that the ownership reverts to the lessee, and the lessee is the town under the lease.
Well, that ain't what I read in there, so I'm sorry. There's a lot of flaws in that lease, I can tell you that.
Claims approval.
Claims approval.
You gotta come up.
Yeah, can I come up here?
The transition.
It's on already, Bob.
Okay. Name's Bob Rule. My question is on the property for the new building. Who is going to be the lessor of that? Pardon?
Public Building Corporation.
And who are the officers of that corporation?
The officers are listed on the Secretary of State website. They are Corey Solar, Ed Goslin, and Dan Moon.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
Claims approval.
Town checks 19,752 to 19,819, totaling $232,668.79. Water department checks numbers 54693 to 54705 totaling $99,949.39. April payroll, $80,821.66. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I second it.
You gotta make the motion.
Oh, I make the motion to approve those claims.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.